Wonder who is this?
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. This is going to be my WandaVision Episode 5 Marvel video. You did not see that coming. There are so many big twists that we have to talk about, so many Easter eggs and references. We'll break it all down. If you're brand new to the channel, I'm doing videos for all the episodes. Be sure to subscribe to get everything. We're doing a giveaway for Disney Plus memberships too. All you have to do to enter is be a subscriber and post all your theories about the big twist in the comments below. Careful for spoilers if you have not seen the episode yet, because there are some pretty big spoilers floating around out there. So many WTF moments and Easter eggs to talk about, so I'll just number these as we go along to stay organized. Probably the best episode so far, just in terms of big WTF reveals. I know everyone's just thinking about that big twist. Don't worry, we'll get to that in a second. But just starting at the beginning of the episode, the WandaVision theme music just sounds a lot like Family Ties, classic 80s sitcoms. It looks very Family Ties, but there are a lot of blending of elements. Like, even though we're in the 80s here, there's a little bit of Full House, and I think they'll be doing more Full House references because Olsen twins are Elizabeth Olsen's sisters. So we'll probably see some more jokes about that in next week's episode 6, which is going to be the Halloween episode, where they wear their classic comic book costumes, but it's the Halloween versions of their comic book costumes. They're trying to calm Billy and Tommy, Wiccan and Speed, because they're still babies right now before they age up and they just won't be quiet. So Vision starts talking about reading Billy, Charles Darwin's Descent of Man, which is just another one of his books, his second book on human evolution, as we see them continue to evolve throughout the episodes. Then this is actually a really big deal. Scarlet Witch tries to use her reality warping powers to force the twins to go to sleep, and it doesn't work on them. Her powers don't work on them, and she can't figure out why. They reference this a couple times during the episode with some callbacks. Like Agnes later says, "Kids, you can't control them." Like, she literally calls it out. That's because of the way Scarlet Witch created them and their mutant powers. They have powers like hers. Or really, if you want to get technical, Billy, Wiccan, has the same types of reality warping powers that she does. So when they morph up through the episode, aging themselves up, they make it seem like they both have the ability to do that, but you could also say that Billy might be doing it himself too, because he has the exact same power she does. Throughout the episode, they also kind of clue you into the fact that they know what's really going on as well, like talking about her having the ability to bring things back from death. But then we have another Agnes moment when she says, "No, what we really need is help," and she shows up with exactly what they need, as if Scarlet Witch is controlling this, although we also kind of think that Agnes really knows what's going on, or Agatha Harkness. I think we're all on board with the idea that she probably winds up being a version of Agatha Harkness from the comics. Like, they have the big WTF moment where she says, "Why don't we take it from the top again? Do you want me to do this again?" Making Scarlet Witch freak out, thinking that Agnes really knows what's happening with her ability to rewind time and redo events when she doesn't like the outcome. They also use this as part of the Vision story arc during the episode, and him slowly realizing what's actually going on, him finding the truth out. She calls herself Auntie Agnes and says she has a couple tricks up her sleeve, which I think is just a reference to comic book Agatha Harkness and her magical abilities, foreshadowing tricks that she'll pull in future episodes, like telling Vision that he's really supposed to be dead. Then they have the lavender moment. If it seemed weird during this scene, it's because there's a lot of mythology behind lavender. Some people believe that if you hang it above the door, it will guard against evil spirits, and you can add it to children's bathwater to drive demons out of them. So this is just a reference to Scarlet Witch's comic book children being the soul shards of Mephisto, wanting to drive the demon away, so to speak. Expect a much more simplified version of their origin story and how they continue to exist after WandaVision on the TV show. Then when she makes another reference to her husband Ralph, using it in There's No Taming This Tiger, the mythology behind lavender also claims that it quote-unquote makes lions and tigers go docile. There's also a figurine of a tiger on their kitchen table later in the episode, which I think is another callback to this reference, taming the tiger, so to speak. But sort of tying this all back around too, also a reference to Scarlet Witch taming that tiger, because she woke up this morning and chose violence. It gets crazy later in the episode, so obviously we'll talk about that too, because there's some more cool X-Men Easter eggs in her big confrontation with the Sword Agents. A lot of X-Men Easter eggs in this episode just in general, not just the Quicksilver stuff with Evan Peters, but also with some of the other stuff she does. Then they have the big twist with the first time the twins age themselves up. So the way they make it seem is that they're actually controlling their own ages during the episode. It's not Scarlet Witch doing this. You also notice that the clothes that they wear throughout the episode, even though they change as they age up, the color scheme for both of them stays true to their comic book costume color scheme. But they'll just continue to use these big Billy and Tommy twists for big WTF moments in future episodes. Like, this is only the beginning. It's going to get way crazier with them. Then they play the new version of the 80s theme song, like they have a new theme song for all the episodes. But the whole theme song is a metaphor for what's actually happening on the show, for what is happening with Scarlet Witch in her life right now. This really sappy song plays as a brush paints their family into color, but it's being wielded with Scarlet Witch's telekinesis powers. So it's a metaphor for her creating her family out of nothing. Like that's literally what she's doing inside this reality. She created Billy and Tommy. She brought Vision back to life. She's making her family, literally. Then they do the funny montage of the family photo album showing them as kids and adults. This is so hilarious and messed up. They show a real-life picture of baby Elizabeth Olsen. This is actually from real life. But then in the adult picture, you actually see her in Sokovia in the slums here with all this destruction behind her, and you notice that Quicksilver isn't there. So the fact that all this sappy music is playing while this is happening is just a metaphor for what she's doing. She's trying to gloss over the really WTF moments of her life. Like she doesn't want to think about all the pain that she's experienced. Then they have that hilarious Vision montage, like Vision as a little kid, when clearly, obviously, none of this is real. She's making this up as they go along. They kind of reference that during episode 1 as well, when Mrs. Hart says, let them tell their story, they're trying to figure it out. Like Scarlet Witch is literally writing the story as she goes along. If you listen to the lyrics of this theme song as well, they repeat that over and over. We're making this up as we go along. You notice the aspect ratio changes again, going back to movie aspect ratio, but now the broadcast has actually changed to widescreen because we're now moving into more of the modern era of TV. And because a lot of this episode is all about Vision realizing what's really happening and them sort of blending the fictional reality with the modern reality, like when Scarlet Witch literally crosses the barrier and speaks to them with her Sokovian accent. She tries to explain what it was like being stuck in there, saying that she remembers Scarlet Witch's voice in her head, this overwhelming feeling forcing her to act and conform to the role that she cast for her as Geraldine, and this hopeless feeling of grief like she was drowning. Later in the episode, when Vision is talking to Norm, he references that same type of feeling. So what they're talking about is that they're actually feeling the same pain as Scarlet Witch. They're feeling her emotions, like she is drowning in grief right now. That's why all this is happening, why she created this. But then they set up this big arc of Tyler Hayward being a dick and sort of setting Scarlet Witch off, antagonizing her, pushing her to be more of a villain during the episode, and eventually during the series. Like, it's only going to escalate as episodes go on. Darcy even literally calls him out on it, like, yeah, he's just an asshole like that. He calls her the primary victimizer, but that could mean that there are other forces in play, because we'll get into this when I talk about the big Quicksilver twist. There seems like there's a little bit of other stuff going on in the background too. During the episode, there are a couple twists where Scarlet Witch claims that she had nothing to do with it. I didn't do this. I have no idea what's going on. You don't believe me. But then they run through her backstory, talking about her parents, Irina and Oleg Maximoff. Those are the Maximoffs from the comics. They talk about their origin with the Mind Stone, referencing the events of the Captain America Winter Soldier post-credit scene, Baron von Strucker. We've seen that in previous episodes, and there's been some trailer footage implying that they'll continue to explore this idea in future episodes as well. Tyler Hayward keeps trying to get Jimmy Woo to call her Scarlet Witch. She doesn't have another name, an alias. He keeps talking about her being a villain, and you can kind of see the way they're positioning this, like Monica Rambeau, Jimmy Woo, and Darcy all want to be sympathetic to Wanda and help her, because ultimately she's a good character who's just going through very terrible circumstances. She's just having a really, really bad year. So while the Tyler Hayward character is only making things worse, pushing her further and further, they're trying to help her on the DL. They also reference a couple cool Avengers movies deleted post-credit scenes during the episode as well, from different Avengers movies. The first one is when Jimmy Woo is talking about Scarlet Witch becoming an Avenger. He's referencing the end of Avengers Age of Ultron, where they have that Avengers Assemble moment. During the original version of that scene, it was originally meant to be Captain Marvel floating down. This was way before they'd ever cast Brie Larson as Captain Marvel. The whole idea was they were going to introduce the character much earlier during Marvel Phase 2, Marvel Phase 3, and this was going to be the first time you actually see her show up. Then the second deleted post-credit scene is actually the Avengers Endgame WandaVision post-credit scene that Kevin Feige got rid of. So I did a video about this a little while ago. I was really happy that they confirmed my theory. Basically, what was originally supposed to happen is exactly what you see play out during the episode. Paul Bettany revealed that what was going to happen after this scene here of Scarlet Witch talking to Hawkeye after the Iron Man funeral is that she was going to break into Sword, steal Vision's body, and just drive away with the body bag. And that would have led them into the opening moments of WandaVision Episode 1, when this is all happening. The cooler thing too that they lay on top of this as well is they reveal that it goes against Vision's living will. He did not want the Avengers to repair him or bring him back to life, however you want to think about that. But I feel like this is an answer to the question of why they didn't bring Vision back during Avengers Endgame, because he did not want to be brought back per his will and the Avengers were respecting that. So they just want to hype up more of Scarlet Witch is going completely off the rails. She woke up and chose violence this morning. But while they're talking about Scarlet Witch's grief, they focus on Monica Rambeau with the camera because they want her to have some common ground with her. They both lost loved ones. Like, they have the big scene in episode 4 where she realizes that her mother has died. So she would understand the grief that Scarlet Witch is experiencing right now, and she'd be sympathetic to her in a way that the other Sword agents, like Tyler Hayward, are not sympathetic to her. They set up the big Vision versus Scarlet Witch moment at the end of the episode when they say, what happens when Vision learns the truth? Then when they go back inside the House of M reality, they introduce Sparky the dog from the Tom King Vision run. The dog was also named Sparky during that comic book run, but in that story, it was an android created by Vision because in that version of the story, Vision is the one that creates the family for himself, and they're all androids. Then she starts using her powers in front of everyone. Like she says, she's not trying to hide it anymore. She creates the dog collar. Agnes also does not think that it's weird. And then she does this later in the episode too. They sort of reference it again when the giant dome, the bubble around the House of M reality, changes to red and becomes visible to the naked eye. Like she says, she's not hiding anymore. She's not hiding this alternate reality. Then they have the next big WTF twist of the twins aging themselves up 10 years so that they can keep the dog, and just reminding you that they do have powers of their own and they can't be controlled by Scarlet Witch the way that she's controlling everyone else. Then they jump back into the normal MCU reality and they have that funny moment of Jimmy Woo happily bringing Darcy and Monica Rambeau coffee, paying off the Darcy coffee scene from episode 4 where she was complaining about nobody bringing her coffee. When they're trying to find a way back into the alternate House of M reality, Monica Rambeau says she knows an aerospace engineer who'd be up for the challenge of designing a vehicle to get them back inside. A lot of people wondering who this is, and I do think it'll wind up being someone special. I think the vehicle that they're talking about was from one of the trailers, so they will pay this off eventually, but I don't know who the person is going to wind up being. A lot of people are like, is it Victor Von Doom because he's an engineer? Is it another Fantastic Four reference? Is it going to be Adam Brashear? Is it going to be the Blue Marvel? Because everybody's been wondering when he's going to enter the MCU, and he is an engineer, just like she says. It could be, but they're going to reveal what's going on with that in next week's episode, so we'll see if they actually tell us who that person is, or if they wait to reveal that to the Captain Marvel 2 movie. Because right after this, they make a Captain Marvel reference because her powers come from the Space Stone, just like Scarlet Witch's powers are connected to the Mind Stone, another Infinity Stone. But then the way they play the scene off makes it seem like there's some drama between Monica Rambeau and Captain Marvel because she doesn't want to talk about it. She's like, we're not talking about her, and then just brushes it off. Even Jimmy Woo thinks that it's kind of a weird reaction. Like, he looks at Darcy going, wait, what's going on here? Like, he senses there's some tension with Captain Marvel. I assume that they're going to pay that off during Captain Marvel 2, because that is where Monica Rambeau is going to show up next in the MCU after WandaVision. They also start arguing about the technicalities of how things exist in the alternate reality. Wait, is she creating them out of nothing? Is she just reshaping things that already exist? That's what the whole Kevlar pants twist is with Monica Rambeau's 60-looking getup. Like, oh, she's rewriting reality, which is a big twist for her rewriting Quicksilver's character. She recast Quicksilver. But then they have the big WTF moment with Vision at his company, sort of realizing what's going on with the email. They make more references to Vision being an android. You're like a walking computer. It's almost like you speak their language. They wind up intercepting an email from the Sword agents. They don't explain exactly how they wind up intercepting it, but it's based on Darcy's findings. And Vision learns about the quote-unquote Maximoff anomaly, which some of the people in Sword, or at least Darcy, is calling the Hex. She literally talks about that. Oh, it's shaped like a hexagon, so I'm trying to call it the Hex. The big Easter egg there is that it's also a reference to Scarlet Witch's Hex powers in the comics, and if you actually read that classic Vision and Scarlet Witch miniseries, the story about their relationship together, you notice that some of the comic book frames are shaped like hexes, which I think is another callback to that episode 1 outro scene where the frame turns into a hex and then it zooms out into the regular MCU reality while Darcy's watching the broadcast. I talked a little bit about the other hexagon Easter eggs during my WandaVision episode 5 trailer video. Hexagons are a shape that show up in nature pretty frequently because mathematically they've been proven to be a much more efficient shape than actual circles or other shapes. Structurally, they're also incredibly strong because they're made up of a bunch of triangles, and triangles are the strongest shape. But in some of the ways that they use them on the WandaVision series, they're meant to be comic book references. Then they reveal that the twins also know about how time moves differently in here. Why is Dad at work if it's Saturday? No, it's not Saturday, it's Monday. And then Scarlet Witch tries to brush it under the rug, like she just tries to blow past it, like, oh, it's no big deal, just weird stuff happening. But then they have that big WTF twist with the sword drone. We find out that Tyler Hayward secretly armed it with a missile, seeming like he was actually trying to kill Scarlet Witch, straight up take her down, like take her out now, take the shot. They try to make it pretty clear that Monica Rambeau was having no part of that. She didn't know what was actually going on. Love the moment where you see Scarlet Witch on the broadcast monitors, her eyes light red, and she destroys the drone, then comes out to issue her ultimatum. Notice that when she steps out of the barrier and starts speaking to them, her Sokovian accent comes back, and she's wearing her regular Avengers costume. She changes her 80s clothes back to her modern-day costume. Monica Rambeau tries to get her to chill out, just finding some common ground, but she claims she already has everything she needs and says no one is ever going to take it from her again. When she turns all their guns on them, it's meant to be a reference to the original X-Men movie where Magneto, her comic book father, has a very similar type of scene going up against a bunch of police officers. You Homo sapiens and your guns. This is the first big Magneto Easter egg that I've seen, but it's not quite the same thing as them doing the Evan Peters Quicksilver thing from the Fox X-Men movies, so I'll explain the difference. So we haven't actually seen actual Magneto on the show yet. Hopefully there'll be some big Magneto twist later on or some bigger Easter egg. Then we get our next commercial, and it's really funny in a WTF way. It's meant to be a parody of a Brawny or Downey paper towel ad, but Lagos is the name of the city where they were at the beginning of Captain America Civil War, where Scarlet Witch accidentally wound up killing all those innocent people when she was trying to stop the Hydra attack. The red liquid is meant to be a reference to the blood that she spilled. Oops, a mess that you need to clean up. Then as they go out searching for Sparky, they pass the mailman, who also seems like he knows what's really going on, because as he passes them, he references Scarlet Witch not letting Sparky get far because she's controlling everything. Don't worry, your mom won't let him get very far. It just seems like something weird is going on with that mailman, so keep your eyes peeled on him for the next couple of episodes. They wind up at Agnes's house, and she claims that Sparky died because he ate too many of her azalea plants, which are actually toxic to dogs in real life. Then they turn into this big teachable moment about death and not trying to run from your grief. The kids try to age themselves up before she stops them. No, don't try to run from your pain. And a lot of what she's talking about is exactly what she's doing. Like she ran from her pain to create this fictional reality. The twins remind you that they know what her powers are. You can bring him back from the dead. Please do it, mommy. And just as she's talking about not bringing things back, Vision walks up. I also love Agnes's reaction to that too. She's like, wait a minute, you can do that? Like she's also realizing that she can bring stuff back from the dead, but then they don't address it later. But then as they end the episode, Vision tries to talk to Scarlet Witch about Norm. He starts calling her out on this fictional reality and everything that's going on. She tries to avoid the conversation. She doesn't completely deny it, but she just tries to blow past it like, all right, it's time for bed, let's all go. The credits start playing in front of them, but they continue to argue while the credits are happening. You remember during the episode that Monica Rambeau, Darcy, and Jimmy Woo figure out that Scarlet Witch is controlling the broadcast, the edits, the way they see everything. So the reason why the credits cut out after they continue arguing into the next room and Vision automatically changes back to his normal appearance is because Vision is kind of interrupting Scarlet Witch's conscious mind from transmitting this broadcast feed, her powers from working the way that she wants them to, because she has to focus on the argument that she's having with him. He says he doesn't really know anything about himself. He doesn't remember his life before they came to Westview because she's controlling everything about him. She also kind of challenges him on that notion too when he says, you can't control me like you control everything else and everyone else in here. And she says, can't I? Because technically she reanimated him. She is kind of controlling him. Then just as she starts talking about not understanding how all this started, she sounds like she's being truthful when she says that too. I don't know how any of this began. She doesn't really understand how her powers are working. The cosmic radiation from her abilities warping reality around her. The doorbell rings, and it's Evan Peters' X-Men Quicksilver, but recast as MCU Quicksilver within the narrative of this fictional reality. Now, in the credits for the episode, he's only listed as Pietro. They don't list him as Quicksilver, but a lot of people are just wondering what this means. Is this them blending the multiverse elements of the Fox X-Men movies with the MCU movies? Is this sort of a lead-in for how they explain Deadpool from the Fox movies, Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool showing up in the MCU movies eventually? Or is there something else going on with this twist? Is Evan Peters playing somebody else pretending to be Pietro? But if you actually listen to his performance, you actually watch the way he behaves, he's not acting like MCU Quicksilver, and he's not acting exactly like his Fox X-Men Quicksilver either. The vibe he's giving off is kind of like a douchier version of his Fox X-Men Quicksilver character. But according to Scarlet Witch, she is not responsible for the doorbell ringing, so she's claiming that she's not responsible for Quicksilver showing up here. So it could be evidence of some outside forces influencing some of what's happening during the scenario. It could be a hat tip for more Doctor Strange 2 stuff, more setup for the villain during that, like Nightmare or even Mephisto. So we'll just have to wait and see for more episodes, because it sounds like it's just one of the first of many twists behind this Quicksilver twist. Like, first he shows up, but then there's way more stuff happening with this character than they've let on. I do love the rug pull moment that they go out on, and when he says, "Hey, who's the popsicle?" pointing at Vision, revealing that he knows that Vision is really dead. Like I said, twists within twists within twists. So everyone post all your theories in the comments below about what's really going on with Evan Peters' Quicksilver showing up. Do you think it's actually Fox X-Men movies blending with the MCU movies, or do you think he's actually secretly some other character just pretending to be Pietro? I'll talk more about this during my trailer video for episode 6, so that'll post tomorrow, but leave all your questions in the comments below, and if there are any big Easter eggs that you spotted that I didn't mention in the video, just write them below in the comments as well. Everyone, click here for my brand new WandaVision Fantastic Four Easter eggs video, and click here for all my other WandaVision episode videos. Thank you so much for watching, everyone stay safe, and I'll see you guys tonight.